Welcome to my channel, and today you're going to design this flyer in Adobe Photoshop, and I'm going to teach you how to design this from scratch. Okay, so when you open your Photoshop, the first thing that you're going to do is that you're going to come here, you're going to click on new file. Okay, so just click on new file, and then when you click on new file, this pops up, and when this pops up, so here I'm going to enter Friday party. From Friday party flyer. So I do that Friday party flyer, and then for the width and height customizations, 4x5 inches screen, and then you make sure that your orientation is a portrait, and then your resolution is set at 300 pixels per inch, and then for your color mode, set it to RGB, and then for your background content, you could set it as transparent, or you could just choose white. Okay, then you can go into your advanced options, and then you could set your color profile as do not color manage, or then you could set it at sRGB. So I'm going to go for do not color manage, and then your pixel ratios is a square pixels, and then I think that's that. You could go ahead and then we could create our file. So when you create your file, this is what comes up. Okay, so as this comes up, you're going to initially set our foreground and our background colors over here. So I'm going to go ahead and set my background color. So to set my background color, you are going to go into the file. That's the txt file that is attached to the file. You can find the link to the files in the description below. So to go here, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to use this as my background color. Okay, so I use this as my background color, and then I'm going to paste that over here. So this is going to be my background color, and then for my foreground color, I'm going to leave it as that for now. Okay, so let me interchange this and bring this to the front, and I'm going to come here to your adjustment layer, and then just click on this, and then from here click on solid color. So you're going to choose solid color from your adjustment layer. So after clicking on solid color, it's going to automatically fill in my foreground color over here. If yours doesn't automatically fill in, you can just go back to your file and then just copy this. So you can come here, copy this, and then paste it over here. That is going to be your solid color. So we are going to use this as our BG. Sorry. So for our background, we're just going to create a group out of this. Okay, so you can drag it down there to create a group, and then we're going to call it BG for background. So you're going to click on this one too over here. Now on top of this solid color layer, you're going to go back to our files, and then you're going to bring in this resource. That is this nice background look over here. So after bringing in this resource, what you're going to do is that you're going to expand it for it to look something like this. And then after expanding it to look something like this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the blend mode for this layer. So this blend mode, I'm going to change it to soft lights. Okay, so the blend mode is going to use this soft lights. For now, I can see something black, a space over there at the top. Good. So now you drag it upwards, and if you feel like there's still some spaces outside, you can just expand your layer over here. Now after you change your blend mode to soft light, the next thing you're going to do is that you're going to bring in another resource. So you're going to bring in this resource. Okay, so now you're going to put this resource over this one. Okay, now you realize that when I dragged it out, it is not expanding in all directions from the center like how I want it to be. So for it to expand in all directions like I want it to be, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the Alt key on my keyboard. So I press and hold my Alt key, and then I left click from the corner here. I left click, and then I drag it, and you realize that it expands in all directions. Okay, so it's going to expand in all directions like we want it to be. Now after it expands in all directions, I'm going to position it like the way that I want it to be. So I want it to be exactly over here, somewhere here. Okay, so now I just press OK. But before I go on, I like to adjust this layer. Okay, I don't like everything I'm seeing over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to the mask. I'm going to create a new mask over here, and then when I create a new mask over here, I'm going to enable my brush by clicking on the B. Now I'll enable my brush, but then my brush is not appearing as I want it to be. This is because my caps lock has been turned on. So I press caps lock on my keyboard, and then my caps lock has been turned off. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my brush size. So for me to adjust my brush size, there's two ways I could do that. I could right click, and then here my brush settings would pop up, and then I adjust my brush size. So I could just adjust my brush size right here. Or if I choose not to do this, I could just go on my keyboard, and then I could go to my bracket keys. You see there's a left bracket and the right bracket. I just click on the left bracket or the right bracket to expand or to reduce my brushes. What I want to do is I want to wrap up some of these layers. Okay, so before I wrap up those layers, I have to expand or reduce my brush. So you either right click and expand or reduce the size of your brush, or you use your brackets to expand or reduce your brush, or the third option you could do is that you will just press on your alt key, press on the alt key on your keyboard. Okay, press on your alt key, and then right click on your mouse button, and then you drag to the left or the right to reduce the size of your mouth. So I press on the alt key, I right click on the left or the right to drag the size of the mouth. So now let's say this is okay for me. So now with this brush size, what I'm going to do is that I am going to brush this side. Okay, so I'm going to apply my brushes on this side, and then after doing that gently, if it is too much, you can just remove that, and then you do that. So now coming back to this layer, I'm going to do the same process. I'll create a new layer mask, and then my brush has been turned on. Make sure that your foreground color is black for your brush, else your brush wouldn't work. Okay, so if your foreground color for your brush over here is white, it means that you're going to reveal some of the layers. But then if your foreground color is black, it means that you're hiding some of the layers. So because I want to hide some of the layers, I make my foreground color black. Now I come back to this layer, and then on my mask layer, my foreground color has been set to black. So it means I want to hide some layers. Now for the layers that I want to emphasize on, for me to hide, is going to be these layers in the corner here, the ones that overshadow the underlining layer. So I'm going to, with my flow set to 100, I'm going to hide all these layers. So I hide all these layers, and then I do that nicely. So after doing that nicely, I'm going to reduce the size of my brush, and then I'm going to hide some parts of these layers. Now the next thing is I'm going to press the V on my keyboard, the V key. All right, let me hide some layers over here. Okay, let me hide some parts of this layer. Let me hide some more parts of this layer, and then I press my V key, and then I press Ctrl 0 to go back to set my my canvas to the full screen. So after doing that, for this particular layer, what I'm going to do is that I am going to add a hue and saturation layer. I'm going to, I don't like the white nature of this thing. Okay, I want the colors to blend it nicely. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to my adjustment layer, and then what I will do is that I'll go here and then click on this, and then after clicking on this, I could just click on hue and saturation. So I'll just click on hue and saturation. So after doing that, I'll make sure that I clip it to the underlining layer. So I press on the alt key, and then when you press on the alt key over here, you see that you are able to clip this layer on top of the underlining layer. Okay, so I could do that, and then, or what I could do is that I would right click on this hue and saturation layer, and then I'll choose this option, create clipping mask. Okay, so you could do that, or you would just out and then you click, then it clips it to this. So on my huge saturation layer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first colorize, and then after colorizing, I'm going to bump up my saturation to about 48. Yes, you can use my settings, okay? So you can bump up your settings to 48 or even 47 will do. And then it is not being read as I really want it to be. So what I could just do is that I will go to my lightness and then I'll reduce my lightness. You see, as I'm reducing my lightness, what you realize is that the layer is now turning from white to somehow red. So I can reduce my lightness to minus 44. Okay, so you can use my settings and then reduce your lightness to minus 44. So after doing that, I think this is nice. I think I could keep it this way. So the next thing that I could do is that I could just close up my BG layer, and then what I would do at this point is to create a new layer or a new group for my model. So I create a new group and then I name this model. For me to rename, what I did was that I double click on the name. You see, when you double click on the name, you are able to rename your group. So you do that and then that will be your model. So I'm going to go ahead and then bring in my model. So I go into my file. Like I said, the link is in the description, and then I bring in this model. Okay, so I bring in this model and then you see my model over here. So with this model that I have over here, I would like to remove the background layer. And for me to do that, there's a simple way that I could do is that I will just right click on my image over here and then I rasterize the layer. After rasterizing the layer, so at this point what I'll do is that I'm going to just click on remove background. I just realized that it's going to be somehow difficult for some of you to remove the background of the image, probably because your PC does not have enough storage. So what I would do is that I would attach the image of the removed background. Okay, so I'm going to attach this image for you so that you could also make it simpler for yourself. So after you've brought in the image, the removed background, just flip horizontal, and then with whilst pressing your Alt key, you scale it down a bit. Good. After you scale it down a bit, the next thing you're going to do is that you're going to mask out some areas of this image, especially the sub edges. So on the same layer, just click on the mask over here and then click on your brush and make sure that your foreground color is black. Now just apply your brush over here slightly over your image. Great. And then press V again to move back to the move tool so that you don't brush anything off that you really need. So as your image has been set like this, I'm going to convert this to a smart object. So to convert to a smart object, just right click on your image and then click on convert to smart object. On my PC, I have created a shortcut to convert to smart object, and I'll just have to press Ctrl and the dot key on my PC and then it converts to smart object. If you want me to teach you how to create your own PC shortcuts for some simple things on Photoshop, just comment shortcuts in the comment section, and then make sure you like this video if you want me to make a video on how to create your own shortcuts. So after doing that, the next thing you go is that it converted your image into a smart object. You go to filter and then you go to camera raw filter. Okay, so you go to camera raw filter. So when your camera raw filter comes up, the next thing you do is that you're going to sharpen your image a bit. So you can sharpen it to about 12, 13 or 14, and then now under your basics, just reduce your highlights to about -16, increase the contrast to about 23 or 24. You just use my settings. Okay, I just use my settings, and then make your accentuate the dark portions. Okay, so make your images a bit darker, and then increase your texture, not so much, and then increase your clarity a bit, and then make sure you dehaze your picture so that there isn't so much blurriness. You see, all this blurriness in the picture, we want it off. And the next thing is that you can go into your vibrance and then pop up your vibrance a bit. Remember that it's a party flyer, so you want everything to just pop out anytime someone sees the picture. Okay, I think that would do for now. Then you just click OK. So after you click OK, this is what you end up with. Now you realize that your canvas size is a 4x5, but then let's say you're designing your flyer and realize that this 4x5 size is not suitable for you. You want to change it to a 5x5 flyer or any other size. For example, your flyer is going to be printed on a big billboard and you want to change the size of your flyer. Okay, you know, a 4x5, anytime you expand it, the pixels are going to look some way. So for you to change the size of your canvas, just go to image, then click on, when you click on image, you come down here, you see canvas size. Okay, so our canvas size that we set was in inches, but then Photoshop is showing me pixels. So what I will do is that I'll click on a pixels and then I'll select inches. So when I select inches, I'm going to change this to a 5x5 canvas. Now this is going to turn it into a 5x5 canvas. After it has turned it into a 5x5 canvas, the next thing I'll do is that I could just, move things around. Okay, so let me just select both layers, press on Ctrl T, and then I just move things around. Great. So let me move this one here too, and then I continue working. All right, let's continue. But if you don't want to do it like this and then you want to reverse it back to your 4x5 canvas, then why not? You could just go back to image, go to canvas size, and then you change this back to a 4x5 canvas. So that would mean that you would have to proceed to readjust everything again, and then you continue working with it. I hope this makes sense. Okay, so you realize that you want to position some of your elements nicely, correctly on your page, but you would need some guidelines for it to help you. You can enable your ruler by pressing Ctrl R on your keyboard, Ctrl R to release the ruler. Or if you are someone like me who likes to work with grid lines, just click on View, go to Guides, and then go to New Guide Layouts to add your grid lines. Okay, so with your new guide layouts, you are adding margins to your design. The margins are there just to guide you. They won't be part of the final work. So on your margins, your top 50 pixels, left 50 pixels, bottom when the right, or 50 pixels. All right, so with this, you continue working with your image. So now let's continue the flyer. So at this point, I can see that my image is too bright. So for me to fix that, I can go into my curves. I can go into my curves adjustment layer. When I go to my curves adjustment layer, I'm going to clip it to the underlining layer by holding out and then left clicking, or you could just right click and select create clipping mask. So let me undo that. When I right click on my curves layer, then I just select create clipping mask. Okay, but I do not want to do that, so I use the out and then click. Then from over here, I'm going to break this down. Okay, so you can, the top part is darkening the bright areas and the down part is darkening the dark areas. So you want to do it so well that it fits what you actually want to do. So I'm going to go moderate over here. So I can go moderate. I think somewhere here would do. Making sure that it's not darkened too much. Great. So because it's darkened enough like I want it to be, the next thing is that I come here to the model itself, and then in my adjustment layer I go to exposure. So I'm going to adjust the exposure of this layer. So for me to adjust the exposure, I'll just go here, exposure. You see that the clipping mask has been created already. How come it was created already was that I created the adjustment layer right above the image between the first clipping mask and the original image itself. Okay, so in my exposure, I'm going to increase my exposure to about 0. Let me go to 0.82 would do, and then I'm going to do my gamma corrections a bit. Okay, so I'm going to invert this mask. Okay, I would want to brighten only the glasses, so I just press B and then I reduce the mask, and then you must zoom in so that you don't brighten the areas you don't want to brighten. So I could just skip this part of the video, so you could just do this on your own. Just brighten the glasses. Okay, and make sure that you're careful with that. Be it careful If you feel like your brush is too big, you could reduce the size of your brush by using right clicking and then increase the size or reduce the size of your brush, or you could just press on Alt and you drag to the left or right of your mouse. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to brush these places. So after doing that, it comes out like this, as nice as how I want it to be. I want to accentuate some part of the cheeks so that it creates the illusion that there's a light falling on it. Okay, so there's light falling on this part of the body, and then I just that nicely. Great. So after doing that, I think that will be enough for this layer. So the next thing I'll do is that I can close this up, create a group, and then I can call this group the header. I can call this the header. Okay. So after calling this the header is going to just be a text. Okay. So it should be a horizontal type too. And then the text I'm going to type here, Friday. And the font, if you're wondering what font I used, you can just go into your TXT file. You get a font over there. So the font I use here is Akira Expanded. So you can just come here and paste Akira Expanded. When you paste it, it will show up. If you don't have it, you would have to download it on your own. And so that is the font I would want to use, Akira Expanded, and then I would want to position it somewhere here so that it is placed just right. Okay, if it is not placing right, you could just use your keyboard, and then you use that, you just press on the top right left arrow keys, and then you do that nicely. So I could duplicate this layer over here. Don't worry about the alignment for now. I'll show you how to fix your alignment, but for this layer I would want to change the blending options. Okay, so I would want to put a stroke of a size 4. Okay, and then your opacity is set to about 65%, and then your color fill should be white. So with this stroke, which means that I'm going to take all the fill away from it so that it will be left with only the stroke. Okay, so with this I can duplicate this layer. You can press Ctrl J to duplicate your layer, or you press on Alt key. When you press on Alt key and then you drag down so that it duplicates nicely for you whilst holding your Alt key. Then you could add another one whilst holding your Alt key. It duplicates nicely for you. If you didn't do well, you can always undo and then you drag down nicely. So I'm going to drag the last one to the very top. And then for the last one that is at the very top, I think is this one. I'm going to change the stroke to say the color of the hair. Okay, but it's too deep. I don't want it to compete. I don't want the colors to compete with the model. So I can bring the colors somewhere here, and then I click on OK. Then I click on OK over here. Now with the alignment, select the first text layer up until the last text layer. Yes, your alignment option should show automatically over here. You are going to click this one so that it aligns everything perfectly to the left, and then you're going to click on these 3 dots for your distribution. I want equal spacing, so I click on this and then it spaces them out equally. So after doing that, I think everything is nice, but then let me expand my text a bit. Great, so I have expanded my text a bit. If I feel like it's too big, I just hold my Alt key. Remember, you're holding your Alt key so that you're going to expand it equally in all directions. So I'm going to adjust my layers nicely. So after doing that, I'm going to add the last text layer over here, which is your party. So I'm just going to type in party. Okay, so remember that if you want the font that I use, you could always come here, and the font is Ananda Black. Okay, so I come here and I paste it over here, Ananda Black, and then it comes up, and then I just click on it. So with this font, I realized that I didn't type it really well, so let me just fix it. So I fixed that, and then for the color of this text, I'm just going to pick this one, and I make sure I pick the brighter part of it. So I think that's that. and then I'll just adjust it. I'll just adjust it nicely. Okay, so make sure you adjust yours nicely. If you feel like the size is too big, you could always reduce the size. Okay, but then we want to create some form of hierarchy of the text. So once this text is 32, this text should be smaller than 32. It should be somehow 31 or perhaps 30. Okay, so you could adjust the size so that to create hierarchy between the text. Now, after doing that, we know that our text layer is now complete. Our text layer is now complete. If our text layer is complete, then we would have to zoom out so that we see everything what we've done. I think at this point it's very great. Okay, but at this point this place is too black. You see, it's too black, so I would want to put in a nice color over here to accentuate these colors. We're going to create a new layer just above the model, or it could be below the model layer, and then I'm going to bring in my brush. By pressing on the B, the brush will be enabled. So after enabling my brush, what color would I want to use over here? So the color I want to use over here is, the color code is FF0092. Yes, exactly the color I would want to use. So with this color, I'm going to make my brush bigger a bit. I just apply my brush over here, making sure that it's not too bright, and then I apply my brush over here too, nicely. So I'm using my arrow keys to bring. So if you see that your brush isn't as nice as you want it to be, you can always undo it. Okay, good. So after I've done this, I could reduce the opacity of the brushes. I could just reduce the opacity, or I could adjust the blend modes. Okay, so I could just do escalation, and I don't want it to be too covering the image too much, so I bring it down a bit. And then after doing that, I realize that your flyer is looking a bit better than it was before. So we've created our model flyer, we've created our text. The next thing is that we bring in the text layer. So I've already typed out the text already, so I just put it there. The only thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to position it. Okay, and when I'm positioning it, I make sure that it is very close to the guide layers, very close to the guide layers. So I position my text nicely so that it fits very well. Great. So that after it's fixed very well, the next thing I'm going to do is that I would want to color balance the whole thing. I want to balance the colors of everything over here. So I press Ctrl Shift Alt E, Ctrl plus Shift plus Alt plus the E key to create a snapshot of the whole thing, and then I press Ctrl Dots. So let me bring my text layer above everything else so that nothing covers it. And then I press Ctrl Dots to convert to smart objects. There's a keyboard shortcut I did for converting my layer to snap objects. You yourself, you could do it by right clicking on the layer and then click on create convert to smart objects, but I don't want to do that. I did a shortcut. Okay, I created my own shortcut because Photoshop didn't have any shortcut like that for creating a converted to smart object. And if you want me to teach you how I created my own shortcut, just type in the comment section shortcut. Okay, great. So now the next thing I will do is that I've converted everything over here to a smart object. I could go into my camera raw by pressing Ctrl Shift A to go into my camera raw, and then what I will do is that I need to do some editing in my camera raw filter. So let's go into our camera raw filter and then let's do this edit. So in our camera raw filter, the first edit we want to do is that we want to feel the vibe of this flyer. If you want to feel the vibe of this flyer, it means that we can just go into a temperature. Okay, so we could go into the temperature and then increase this temperature slightly so that we feel the vibe. So after going to the temperature, the next thing is I'm going to increase the contrast to about 11, and then we'll reduce the highlight to about -16, reduce the highlight to about 16 or 17, or maybe maximum will do. And then it's looking a bit too dark, you know, so let's reduce the darkness by bumping up our blacks to about say 9 or 10 or 11. Okay, and then we can just go into our textures, and then you increase the texture a bit to about 15, and then we could just increase the clarity too, but then I think this is fine. So after that, we can just go into our detail section. In our detail section, we will sharpen our image to about 17, and then we will reduce the noise. You realize that there's a lot of noise on this image. Yes, so reduce the noise, and then there's a lot of colors in here, and then these colors, they are competing with each other, so we need to reduce the color noise. Okay, the colors are having some noise associated with them, and then the next thing we can do is that I think it's fine. We shouldn't do anything on our camera roll. We could just click on OK, and then our camera roll will be complete. Great. So before, after. Now the next thing we could do after adjusting our camera roll settings, we will just go into color balance. We just want to balance the colors of this flyer. We want to balance the colors nicely. So in our color balance, for first our midtones, we're going to adjust it to the reds. Okay, we don't want to go too much, and then we will accentuate our yellows too. 15 will do. And then we can go into our shadows. For our shadows, we're going to go also to the reds, but not too much. In fact, let's go to our cyan. Okay, it seems like the reds are becoming a bit too much in this flyer, so slightly to the cyans, and then we'll go towards the magenta. You know, there's a magenta down here, these colors, so we want to accentuate them nicely. Good. And then our shadows, we can move our shadows towards the blue to make it more real, you know. And then for our highlights, you could just move it towards the yellow. We want to highlight the yellows and the reds too, and then we'll leave all the other colors. So let's see the before, after. You see, so everything came out so nice. At this point, I still had the part, but the purple color over here, so nicely. Now at this point, we are done with our flyer. Okay, we are done with our flyer. If you feel like there's anything that you want to change that maybe you don't feel okay with, you can always turn off your snapshot layer, and then so like this, let's say I want to edit these colors. These colors are a bit, you know, the brushes I did in the corner, I didn't balance it out carefully, so I could just create a mask, and then I just wipe out the excesses. I make sure that my foreground color is set to black. Okay, it's because it's a white mask, so black means that I'm cleaning up the parts that I don't like. Great, so I do that, and then with this, you know that your snapshot is not the ones that you did before, so you can always press Ctrl Shift Alt E to create a new snapshot layer. Don't forget to convert it to a snap object. After converting it to a snapshot object, you press on Alt key. You can transfer the camera raw settings to this new snapshot layer. So you press your Alt key, then you have clicked to drag the settings, the adjustment on this camera raw filter. You drag it onto this one, so now this one can go away. Click on delete key to clear it off, and then that will be it. So at this point, we are done with our flyer. I hope you love this tutorial. Don't forget to like this video so that YouTube algorithm shares it with others too. And thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.